Hi, today I will be talking about gifted education and diverse populations. As I was reading and preparing for this, and I looked at how cultural and economic gender roles played a part in giftedness, Dr. Betts's autonomous learner model really stood out to me. Dr. Betts and Miss Jolene Kircher created the Autonomous Learner Model, or ALM. This was created to give students more power. ALM's goal is to use the teacher more as a facilitator or a guide to help students take the lead in their education. ALM attempts to teach students how to discover the information on their own. It not only increases their cognitive intellect, but it also expands their emotional intellect, their creative intellect, their leadership skills, just to name a few. The first part of the first part of the model is orientation. And that looks at understanding giftedness, talent, intelligence, and creativity, which I think is an important component when we need to add in the kind of social, emotional piece that goes with giftedness. It looks at group building activities, and this is really a great opportunity for students to discover some different skill sets, especially if you assign them different roles that they're going to play within those group activities. You have self and personal development, program and school opportunities and responsibilities. The second section is individual development, so looking at inter and intra personal learning skills, technology, college and career involvement, organizational skills, and productivity. During this stage, the students really gain the tools they need to be independent learners. The next section is enrichment, and this really opens up the learning for students. You have exploration, investigations, cultural activities, service, adventure trips. Um, this is where I really thought different cultural backgrounds, gender, economical standpoint, all of that can really be investigated during this time. There are some ALM models across the globe that have been set up to teach students coding or to learn a new language. And two of those, at least, most of them, are set up as teacherless and they're self paced, allowing the students, again, to kind of direct their learning. The next component is seminars. Seminars are not taught by a professional or a teacher. These are student led, student created, student taught. Um, a lot of times they'll work in small groups. Again, working within that collaboration, you can set up different roles. You're looking at futuristic, problematic, controversial, general interest, and advanced knowledge. Again, allowing you that wide berth of areas with which a student could go. The last part is the in-depth study. This can be taken on as an individual project or group project. It can be a mentorship. They can do presentations. There could be an assessment. This is considered the highest level of autonomous learning. This is the stage in which the students really synthesize their information, the skills and strategies that they've learned. And it's things they've learned largely on their own, just with like the guide of their teacher. Again, the options to branch out within different cultural or in a variety of areas is available within this learning model. Coming back to the full picture, I really like the autonomous learner model for diverse learners because the students are able to take the lead on what they're learning. Instead of a teacher accidentally pigeonholing a female student into what would be a typical quote unquote gender appropriate topic, the female student can pick where she wants to focus her learning. This model allows students to investigate different areas of interest, no matter their background or their ethnicity or gender. Some pros and cons of ALM that I haven't covered yet. Well, I guess I have covered as well, but the pros, it's really student driven and directed learning. And I like the fact that this covers discussion and learning about social emotional needs. Cons, this isn't really an appropriate model for lower elementary students. It's going to be hard to get into some of these areas in the kindergarten, first grade, second grade levels. There are ways that this could be tweaked and used with those lower levels, but there's going to need to be more hands-on teacher involvement in that process. You do also run the risk of having some bias from the teacher or teachers in this process. I think you're going to run across that as a possible negative side effect on any of the learning models that might be out there for gifted students, though. Some other things just to consider as we are looking at how do we better include and care for our minority students. This model is looking at how content is taught. It's not looking at how the individual, or I'm sorry, let me start over. This looks at how the content is taught or how the student learns. It doesn't take into account how students are identified as gifted. I think that kind of falls into its own category. It doesn't talk about if districts have gifted programs that are inclusive or exclusive. It doesn't look into, does a gifted program need to be restructured? Is there teacher training that needs to take place? I think all of these need to kind of fall into their own category and need to be looked at. Evidence shows us that females and minority students are less likely to be identified as gifted. So a specific study and solution should be found to increase the involvement of those students. And some of these questions could help guide that process. Here are some of the references that I used to create this presentation.